healthy or anything else.
You're on.
I'm on! John! My name is Gary Hopper, state rep from the big city of Ware, New Hampshire. And this is my co-host, the Honorable John Heichel.
From the bigger town.
The bigger city.
The bigger city of
Goffstown.
Goffstown.
And this is Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. This evening, we have Jeff Kassel, who is a running for mayor, is a taxpayer. His loyalties lie with the taxpayer, not with the government itself. But before we get into Jeff, I want a couple things. So, Kellyanne Conway came to New Hampshire this past weekend. It was a Republican-only event. They didn't allow in newspaper reporters. I didn't go because it was $100 a plate, and I just don't have that much money sitting around for food. Anyway, so the AP ran a story, and I think they do it deliberately, and I'll tell you why. They ran a story and say it was poorly attended, only 150 people, and the people had basically muted response to Kellyanne Conway. Well, as soon as that story ran, friends of mine who were there started saying, wait a second, that's not even close to true. There was at least 50 tables, and there was 10 people at each table, and all of them were full. And a lot of the conservatives like John and I that were in that room were totally excited to have somebody who's a Republican that's actually speaking to us instead of just, parroting the party line, which is usually what we get at these things. They say a lot of nice things that are totally frickin' meaningless.
Anybody could say.
Anybody could say. You could have a robot get up and say it'd be okay.
Anybody would say the same thing.
And so, anyway, I thought about that, and Kim Moran posted an article today rebuffing the AP reporter because they obviously just lied. But then I think it's not just that they lied. I think it's deliberate. I think the AP reporter lied for two reasons, or three reasons. One is to help the morale of the Democrats who are getting their butt kicked around the country on a regular basis. In fact, just yesterday in Manchester, Mark, what's Mark's last name? Just won he's back in...
he was here
last
week, 2 weeks ago.
Jeez, I got brain damage. Anyway, Mark just won his re-election to the...
Congratulations, Mark.
Yeah, whatever your name is. McLean. Mark McLean just won... I'm so freaking... He was on my committee, too, and he's such a nice guy. Anyway, he got re-elected to the State House yesterday. So the Democrats are getting their butts kicked around the country, so all they have really left is propaganda. And so saying that it was poorly attended and it was a muted response and all that helps the base of the Democrat Party think that they still have hope. And it makes the Republicans who are foolishly listening to the AP say, oh, crap, we're getting our butts kicked and Trump's losing and he's losing ground. And it's all a propaganda war. There's no reality in it whatsoever. It would have taken a reporter a pretty simple interviewing of just a few people to find out how many people actually were there, as opposed to making things up. So there was
4 reasons. No, 3 reasons.
I lost track.
Well, maybe she's just a liar.
Oh, it could be, yes.
Or fabricates the truth, if you want to be political about it.
Okay, here's the best idea.
Right.
She wakes up after the thing. She's totally hungover. She's absolutely wasted. So, oh man, I was supposed to report on this today. Oh gosh, my deadline's in a half an hour.
She didn't make it.
There was 150 people. Sends it out.
Right.
Was it a dinner? Was it a?
It was a dinner. Yeah, they're always dinners.
Yeah, GOP dinner with Kelly Conway.
I wish I'd known about it. I would have loved to have gone. I think Kellyanne Conway is a real breath of fresh air politically. I even loved it when she started talking about alternative facts.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty funny.
Right.
Well, it's also kind of true,
right?
Because there are a lot of ways. It's really the interpretation of facts that matters. Right. A lot of times the facts themselves are not in dispute. It's just what meaning you should ascribe to the. That's what she was talking about. But they made fun of her.
Right.
And I didn't think she deserved it because I think she's a pretty lively, engaging political
A
figure.
sharp cookie,
They make
too.
fun of anything she does.
I would have
or
loved to,
says.
talk with her for a while, after the dinner was over.
Yeah.
I think she's very charming. I don't
heard she
understand
left-
the attacks.
I heard
She's
she
not
left
stupid
quickly
at all.
After she spoke, I was told she left.
Oh, immediately?
Immediately after, she was probably had
She's
something
busy.
to do.
She's busy.
Yeah, she had other things to do.
Right.
She's got
people that were there really liked
she's
her.
got to keep the dream alive.
Yeah, she's a wonderful lady. We're
Yeah,
glad to
she's
have
pretty
her
awesome.
on the team.
Yeah, there's so many attacks against that poor woman. And the hypocritical thing is the left is always talking about women's rights and the glass ceiling and all this other crap. She's the first woman to lead a national campaign for presidency and won. Probably one of the most powerful women in the country, and all they do is degrade her.
Right. Well, look what they
No, that's that's unfair. It's not all they do.
Oh.
They have plenty of criticism for a lot of people.
for the president too.
They're actually focusing on Trump, not
Yeah,
on
they share it
Kellyanne
with
Conway. But they are attacking people around him to try to discredit him.
Right.
Now, this does not mean I'm a rabid Trump supporter. I'm not. I went to college with Donald Trump. I was his classmate at Penn, and I knew him when he was I think he was 20 when I met him,
Yeah.
and he was almost invisible at Penn. But he was around from time to time. He had previously gone to Fordham University in New York, in their business school. And then he went to Wharton at Penn for his last 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Wharton's a highly rated business school.
Tops.
And of course, he mentioned that during the initial parts of the campaign over and over again. People kind of...
Well, the thing is because of the way he's so forthright and so spontaneous, the press was trying to insinuate that he was an ignoramus.
Well, they've pretty much come
Well,
right out and said that
They
now.
still do. I mean,
Yeah.
I watch. I don't know, CNBC, and I mean, it doesn't matter which one you watch.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Even Fox to a point, and probably and mostly, but CNN is. I can't. I mean, I don't think they've ever said any compliment. Period. Or none of the.
No, they have. I mean, Trump was
Maybe I
Trump
must have been
ki-
working.
Trump was kind of a rock star during the campaign, and all of his opponents, the 17 or 18 other Republicans that ran, for the primary, they claimed he was just sucking the oxygen out of the room, and the media basically backed that up. It was true
Yes,
because
but
Trump
I-
would say things nobody else would dare say.
they-
Right, but
Absolutely.
I honestly don't believe the media, because the media did help him win the primary.
Because they always talked about him.
Right. But I think it's because they felt he was the least legitimate candidate to go up against Hillary.
And they gave
Because-
nobody else any coverage.
Because, like, Ted Cruz in a real debate would have cleaned her clock. It wouldn't even have been close. He is so cotton picking articulate.
Well, he's a
and
very
exact.
smart guy, but his base was the evangelical base,
Right.
and that's only part of the Republican group.
Yes, I'm not saying he would have won.
But I'm not here to talk about Donald Trump.
yes, sorry.
We're here to talk about.
But
We're
anyway,
here-
that's
we're
why
here
I
to
think
talk about me
That's right.
and my
it's all
candidacy.
I thought it was,
Right.
Jeff
it's all about-
Kassel.
Wait, I thought the show was all about me.
No, it's not. Not today.
Not today.
Today, this show is about me. I'm wearing a taxcap.org hat,
Yep.
which is available for anyone to buy at $10 a hat. I'm going to try and sell you two by the end of the show. I give you a discount if you really look enthusiastic about my candidacy. I'm running for mayor in Manchester because the town is corrupt. People don't come out and say. It's one of the things that Trump would come out and say.
Right.
You don't hear that from other people don't say the other guy's a crook, but Trump said it.
Right.
So this is refreshing to a lot of people. And I'm telling you, in Manchester, we got a few crooks.
Just a few?
Well, we have an aldermanic board, and to a large extent, I'm running against them as well, because the mayor's office is actually a pretty weak office. The aldermen decide, and they appropriate.
Now,
The same thing is true for the President of the United States. The President isn't really Commander-in-Chief. The President is Cheerleader-in-Chief. All the money stuff comes out of Congress.
Correct.
And the laws come out of Congress. So he's got to get along with those
He's
guys.
the lobbyist.
Yeah, he's a lobbyist too.
And I'm telling you, in the current crop of aldermen, I don't know how Gatsas has done it. I like Ted Gatsas. I've voted for him every time. But the man had serious heart surgery about a year ago, and I don't know how long he can keep this up. And he certainly can't manage the city with 10 aldermen cutting his legs off every single aldermanic meeting. Did you happen to watch the last meeting?
No.
You didn't? Oh, the last aldermanic meeting was kind of interesting. Pat Long decided to talk about the budget and the school contract. And it looked like he had all the numbers, but prior to that, there were like 20 students that talked for 3 minutes each. And they were crying about something like 12 layoffs from the MST high school.
Right.
I mean, they were actually crying.
Oh yeah, they can. Yeah, that's.
And the aldermen were so moved by these tears, they just couldn't restrain themselves. And even though the superintendent of schools asked for $165 million, which to me sounds like a lot of money, $165 million.
When it's not yours, it's not a lot of money.
Well, yeah, we're going to be talking about that. But some of these aldermen wanted to go a step further and give the schools $170 million.
Yeah.
Because they deserved it.
Yeah.
These poor students
That's 'cause
breaking down into tears in front of the aldermen. But it was disturbing because these teachers and the teachers union were using these students as pawns.
Wait, no, it's just for the children. They love children.
Yeah, the children were carrying the signs, "Don't hurt my teacher."
No way.
Well, not quite.
Oh.
I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that is the message.
Okay.
So
Okay.
when things start looking like they're going to fall apart, they bring in the kids.
Right.
Right.
You know, like, you remember Jerry, what was his name? Jerry Lewis.
Right.
It was always the kids with Jerry Lewis.
Right.
Because everybody's heart breaks when they see
the
a kid
children.
in trouble crying.
And Concord is.
We just have to help them.
Everything's for the
So we need to shovel another $5 million into that system, which is failing. Some of the worst test scores in the state. And it's not really the teacher's fault. I mean, the truth is Manchester has problems. And we are like a magnet for people with problems.
Right.
For example, if you want to attract heroin addicts to your city, just open a methadone clinic. That'll bring them here.
Right.
And make sure there's Narcan all around the city, or Narcan, whatever they call it, that will revive these drug addicts so they can continue to practice their craft of drug addiction.
Well, yeah. Well, the meth thing, the meth lab, methadone clinic.
Yeah.
My understanding is they're not really weaning people off anything.
Well, I have a lot of experience with that. I used to run these clinics in Chicago. I moved here from Chicago, and I used to run drug addiction clinics and residential programs. So I have a lot of experience with
Wow,
this.
that's very good to know.
Oh, I'd like
And
to
people like to
talk
think of
about
drug
that.
addiction as an illness, but it's actually a very bad habit. That's a highly reinforced habit.
Right.
The reason they call it an illness is so we can have these rehab programs in hospitals so insurance companies will pay for it.
illness
So
is
it's got to
bad.
be an illness.
Right.
But it's really a behavior.
Right.
Now, when I was bringing down heroin addicts in Chicago off heroin, it wasn't like in the movies where people are, going crazy and throwing up every 5 minutes. It wasn't like that. We put them on high doses of Valium for a couple of days, weaned them off the Valium, and they came off pretty quick, 3 or 4 days. And they didn't really have a problem because heroin addicts are always in a state of withdrawal. You can't always get heroin. And the other thing is, I mean, let's face it, everybody knows that you're not supposed to put a needle in your arm, right? We're all taught that.
Right.
So, I mean, it's kind of a skewed group that decides to do that. Not everybody's going to put a needle in their arm and start shooting drugs.
Right. Right.
But it's not just the heroin. Manchester attracts other people with disabilities because we have programs for those disabilities. Now, if you cut those programs, they're going to have to go somewhere else. Now, I realize a lot of people are going to think I'm heartless saying that. But the more programs you have, the more deviants and the more people with problems are going to be coming to the city. For example, if you didn't have special education in the schools, but Concord had it, people who had a need for that service, they would go to Concord, not to Manchester. Plus, Manchester is also now the center for refugees that are coming into. We have no control over it. They just come here. So we're getting a lot of people who don't speak English.
That was a deal they made with the devil or the federal government a while ago.
It happened under Wazork, but actually, I don't know how they decide what group of refugees goes where. I remember Mayor Gatz tried to have a meeting with Barack Obama about it and got nowhere.
Yeah, I know Maggie Hassan was speaking, when she was governor, was speaking out against a bunch of Muslim refugees coming to.
Well, that was pretty unusual for a Democrat.
Well, no, because she wanted to get elected to the United States Senate. So it was a political thing to do.
Well, there was an incident around the time that she said
Yes,
that.
there was.
There was an incident that made her change course
Yeah, she
for
changed.
the sake of winning the election.
Correct. It was all about.
It was an incident.
Well, I'm sure she had her pollers out
Oh,
there,
yeah.
and maybe it wasn't. This was one of the. The Democrats attacked Trump for it, but this is one of the aspects of his campaign that was people were receptive to the idea of cutting back on refugees that had the potential to be dangerous in the United States. Now, of course, the truth is 99% of Muslims that come into the United States are not going to be dangerous.
Correct.
Right.
So the question is, why would you take the chance, even if it's just 1% or 1/10 of 1%? I mean, in my view, I think we have too much immigration in this country now. We don't have jobs for the people that actually live here.
Yeah, I don't understand actually why we're not taking in the Christians from the Middle East, because those are the ones who are being beheaded for their faith.
Are we taking in no Christians?
Well, I think if Trump tried to, it'd be all hell would break loose about having a religious litmus test for.
Well, that is what happened.
It doesn't seem as though we have large groups of Christian.
Anyway, the reason I got into this was the Manchester school system suffers because of all of these reasons. When you have 70 languages spoken in a school district, or however many it is,
It's a lot.
it slows everything down if people can't understand
Well, it's also
English.
because they pass laws, and I'm not sure if it's state or federal, that say that if a child comes and their English is another language is their first language, that the school has to provide an interpreter for the parents. Okay?
Well, that doesn't come cheap, does it?
That is not cheap at all. So every time you have a parent, now you get a kid who's going to absolutely have problems, because like if they came from Somalia where there was, torture or whatever, they've got issues, period. And even if they don't have issues, they still have a language barrier. But the problem is that they have to have an interpreter that speaks whatever language that is, and it's not for the first few years. It's like forever. You could have a 17-year-old kid in high school that speaks English perfectly, and it'll go to they'll have a parent-teacher meeting, and they still need that interpreter in that room.
Well, I mean, think about it. You bring in a family from Syria. Their native language is Arabic.
Right.
And what are they going to speak at home? You think they're going to speak English at home?
Right.
They're not going to speak English at home. They're going to speak their native language at home.
Yeah, just like our ancestors spoke.
It would be better if they only spoke in English. They'd become more conversational in English,
Right.
but that's not the way it works. People do what's easiest,
Right.
and their native language is easiest. But getting back to the alderman in this meeting,
Right.
the kids were crying. The alderman responded, not with sympathy necessarily. They responded with money. My money.
Right.
$5 million more of my money. And there were about 9 of them that said that. Dan O'Neill wanted more money. Chris Herbert wanted more money.
Democrat. Say another one.
Barbara Shaw, she wanted more money.
Democrat. 3.
Bill Barry.
4.
Bill Barry,
These are all
government employee.
I understand, but these are all Democrats that you're mentioning, and whether or not city elections are partisan.
Well, I don't think people are necessarily bad people because they vote
I don't
Democrat.
think they're bad people because they vote Democrat. I think they're bad people because it seems as though the Democrats are the ones that would support them.
Let me put it a little bit different.
And this is in a nonpartisan. I don't know if Manchester.
Look,
We have an incoming call.
One of the things Trump said, and he was right about this, is that these cities that are deteriorating in America,
Please call back.
they are under Democrat control.
Right,
They run Detroit.
right.
Line one.
Line one. Hello. You're on the air. Ted.
Yes, sir.
Yes, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. You?
Oh, very good, thank you. What's your question?
Oh, question is, I'm wondering what happened to Alderman 6 for the city. Can you tell me
Alderman 6 is who?
and where he's gone or whatever? Because I don't know. I can't get a hold of the guy. I'm in Ward 6, so I'd like to find out what's going on.
I think someone moved. I think someone actually left the city, and it might have been Ward
Was
6.
it a not
Katsitonis, he's still there.
Yeah,
I think his name was Pappas.
yeah, Pappas.
The alderman,
He
but
moved.
I haven't heard anything about him.
Yeah, I was reading some things that Alderman Lavasser was commenting on one day, and he was saying that he wished that Pappas wouldn't have left at the time he did. But as far as I know, he's gone.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. So who's going to replace him, or is there?
I think
is there a
they're gonna
replacement or
wait.
what?
They're gonna wait until the next election. I'm pretty sure. I don't think there'll be a special election. Maybe there will, but I'm not sure.
No idea. That's we don't know, but I don't believe that there is an alderman in that seat, unless there's a
Okay. Well,
I
you
don't
could
know how
have
they do it.
somebody to represent us. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to get a hold of him before, and it was hard to get a hold of him. So, I had a few questions about the area. I've lived here most of my life, or all of my life, actually, and I just wanted to ask him some questions.
You call the mayor's office, and I'm sure they can.
Or
give
the
you-
alderman at large.
Or the alderman at large, Joe Kelly Lavasser. He's my favorite alderman. I live in a different city, but he's my favorite alderman, and Keith Hirschman, of course.
Okay, I'll definitely do that. I'll give it a shot.
Great.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ted.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay, so you had basically during this meeting where, after the kids, there was about an hour discussion, and each alderman was talking about how we're not going to give him 165 million, we're going to give him 170. We'd love to give him more.
Right.
And then Chris Herbert said he's tired of cutting back and not adequately funding the schools.
Right.
He was tired of it, and he's tired of the potholes in the streets where a Volkswagen could disappear into one of those holes.
Right, well.
And he said he wants to fund it. He doesn't care what it's going to cost.
Right.
Isn't that a pretty good way to get rid of Volkswagens?
Well,
Just think.
With Obama
yeah, maybe he's got, I can't say. There were about 10 of these aldermen. Finally, at the end, Gatsa said, why are we talking about this? We don't know if we're going to get that kindergarten money from the state.
Right.
It hasn't been decided yet.
Right.
And as it turned out, we probably aren't getting it.
Right. You never do.
But I mean, they weren't
Right.
just increasing it $2 million, which is what the kindergarten money was. They were going above that to $5 million.
Right. They're anticipating money coming
And
in.
they don't
before
care
they
because
even
it's
have
not their money.
it. They spend it.
It's my money.
Right.
They take my money. Do you own a house in this city?
No.
No.
You're in Goffstown.
Yes.
Well, I own a house in this city, and I watched my taxes over the last 30 or 40 years go from $700 a year. Now it's $5,300.
Right.
And I'm not getting much for the money, and the city's not getting better. The city's not getting better. I
Right.
get garbage collection. I've never had a kid in any of the school systems in the city.
Right.
None. So I'm not getting much for the money, and I got Bill Barry and Chris Herbert and Dan O'Neill and Barbara Shaw and Norm Gamache with their hand deep into my pocket.
Well, that's five. I mean, I can, what you just said is what I said, and what you responded. I can tell you that if there were five Republicans, five more Republicans on that board, you'd have less of this head going on.
Hey, before
The Yager Decker thing?
Especially
that was
with those
done
five.
under a Republican
I know all
board.
five of those guys, those people, and they're wonderful people, great aldermen for the city, but they definitely support
if you want to
increased spending and taxes.
if you want to get to we have a series of charts that Jeff provided the show, and if you want to get to them, we're going to run out of time. Right now, you're down to about 2 minutes apiece.
We're almost off the air?
We got 30 minutes or 20 something minutes.
Okay, there's going to be time for that because I haven't really gotten to that part. Those are basically national charts because what's happening to Manchester is the city is kind of bankrupt. It doesn't look like that when you watch the aldermanic meetings, but you see the legacy costs from all these pensions. If you look at the two sheets of numbers that I gave you, you're going to see a lot of the top 100 employees. You're going to see 55 cops on that list and about 25 firemen. The top 80 paid people in the city are either cops or firemen.
Paul, could you put up picture 1?
I don't think they'll be able to read it.
I don't know.
I don't know if they can see that.
Can you imagine?
But
Imagine,
this is the. I believe this is the first page, page 1, and the top paid person is the airport director. He makes over $200,000.
$233,000 a year for a city employee. I think it's. I mean, that's. Just,
Well, you see, what's happening now is it's reverse Robin Hood. It's take from the poor and give to the rich.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, you and I, and
Thank you.
all of us here, we screwed up. We should have been contributing to Dan O'Neill's political campaigns, so we could have become a fireman, and then
Right.
we'd be making $130,000 a year
Oh,
with a $50,000 benefit package.
so I just did it wrong.
You were wrong.
Right.
I'm going to tell you a little story. I used to smoke cigarettes. I steal one every now and then, and I live right next to that North End fire station on Webster Street.
Yeah.
And so I went across the street to buy cigarettes at the Tiger gas station, and there were two firemen. They were sitting at the on the bench in front of the fire station. And I said, "You guys look great." They were in their uniforms. They had shorts, but they were pretty buff. They looked like they worked out. I said, "You guys look terrific. You look like you work out." They said, "Well, we got a gym behind the fire trucks." They said, "You want to see it?" So I said, "Of course. I'd love to see that." I was wondering what my $5,300 a year paid for. And so they took me behind the fire trucks, and it just, it looked like Gold's Gym back there, stainless steel equipment. And I said,
Stainless steel?
"Is there any way I can work out with you guys?" And they said, "You got to be a fireman, sorry." And I said, "Well, how do I get to be a fireman?" They said, "Do you know Dan O'Neill?" I said, "Dan O'Neill, the alderman?" They said, "Yeah." "Do you know Dan O'Neill, the alderman?" I said, "Yeah, I know him." And one guy said, "I wouldn't be a firefighter today if it wasn't for Dan O'Neill." And then the other guy said, "Me too. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Dan O'Neill." That's a true story. It actually happened. I have a good imagination, but I don't have enough of imagination to make that up. That happened.
Right.
And then after I spoke at a recent aldermanic meeting, Dan O'Neill kind of came. He was behind me as I was leaving the aldermanic chamber. And then I turned around and he said, "Jeff, I hear you've been bad-mouthing me behind my back." And I said, "Hey, come over here. I'll do it to your face. It's not a problem." Yeah. And I was going to speak at the aldermanic meeting, but unfortunately, all the little kids were there, the students, with their tissues and their
Right.
signs, "Don't hurt my teacher." And, that whole dog and pony show went on, and I couldn't really wait for it to end because I had to do something.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, what I'm telling you is the aldermanic board is corrupt. They're in the pockets of the unions. There's an unholy alliance between the unions in Manchester, the municipal unions, and the aldermanic board. And this is going on all over the country, which is why so many cities have gone bankrupt. Last week, Puerto Rico's not a city. That's the biggest bankruptcy in America. It went bankrupt last week.
Right.
Harrisburg, Pennsylvania's gone bankrupt. Stockton, California's gone bankrupt.
California's going to go bankrupt.
Well, as long as there are taxpayers making money, they're going to, California will extract their tribute. You see, government is really a giant protection racket. And you have to pay your tribute in the form of taxation. I mean, we fought a revolutionary war over this. But now we're giving you much more money to taxes than we ever had under the British.
Right.
And so it's a giant protection racket, and if you don't give them your money, in my case, $5,300 a year, plus the rooms and meals tax, the cigarette tax, the gas tax, the business profits tax, the business enterprise tax, and a whole host. If you don't do it, they're going to take your house.
Right.
It's a protection racket. We are protecting ourselves from government. They will steal your house, and then they'll auction it off to somebody that will pay these horrendous taxes.
Right.
It's a racket.
It's not tax-free New Hampshire.
Right.
It's one of the highest tax states.
No, they're all like this in one way or another.
Yeah, New Hampshire's
They're-
very high.
but there's plenty of taxes in New Hampshire.
Yeah, Connecticut is getting really, really
Hartford,
bad.
Connecticut's about to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Hartford, Connecticut. The rich people live, I think, in West Hartford, Connecticut. But Hartford, Connecticut, they're in a lot of trouble now. A lot of cities are in a lot of trouble, and because the city councils are basically the proxies for the municipal unions.
Right.
This is true of Chicago, and you said it's true of your city in Goffstown.
Yeah.
Now, how many people vote in a city election in the primary in Goffstown?
1,500,
And how many people live in Goffstown?
18,000.
Well, that's pathetic, isn't it?
Yeah, I think on a high 7,000 on a high national election, for instance.
Yeah.
I pay much more in property taxes in Manchester than I pay in federal income tax. But, people want to, vote in these regular elections, where
The most important elections are the local elections.
and nobody votes.
And nobody votes. The most important elections anybody can vote in, period, is the election that happens in your town.
Are people just stupid? Is that the problem? Are people just stupid?
No.
People say, you hear politicians say this all the time. I think American voters are smarter than that. You've heard that, right?
Right.
But they're not. They're not smarter than
No,
that.
I disagree. I don't think it's lack of intelligence. I think it's lack of engagement and time and information. In other words, they know, they probably, have heard the stories about Trump doing this, and this, but they don't know about the children coming to the alderman meeting and crying and stuff like that. They don't know that, aldermen are basically helping people get jobs as firemen and.
Well, it's not just that. Katziantonis, alderman in one of the wards. The man wants my money. He's got his hand into my pocket to protect the children. But this is the guy that doesn't pay his own taxes. He's under investigation by the state. There are liens against his property. The federal government's investigating him, probably for money laundering.
Right,
So Katziantonis, he's part of it.
right.
Why he's up there, why he doesn't resign. Well, if I was Katziantonis, I'd go into my house, I'd shut the door, I'd never come out again. It's embarrassing. $400,000? You owe the state? How much does he owe the federal government?
Right. Yeah, but what I'm getting at is I don't think the voters in Manchester are aware of what's going on, how to get informed or anything else. I think it's more ignorance than it is intelligence.
Okay. Forgive me. Okay. The voters are ignorant,
Yes.
not unintelligent. They're disconnected.
Disconnected is even a better way to phrase it.
Okay. But this is what it
They don't
really
think their
is.
vote counts
They
in
don't
a lot of
know,
instances.
and they don't care. Ignorance and apathy.
Yes.
And that is what's destroying the cities. We've had 20 cities go bankrupt in the last 10 years. How many have to go bankrupt before people finally get it?
Yeah, it's like
Taxcap.org. www.taxcap.org. Everything you want to know about city money, I put on that site, and I got some nice video there for if you want to take a look at that.
That's a good one. Yeah, we'll put that on Facebook too.
All right, you wanted to talk about on slide number 2, Medicare, and how that's going to affect us out to 2040.
Yeah, you see what's going on in Manchester with the legacy cost in the retirement system, $5 billion underfunded for the entire state.
Right.
The same thing's happening with Social Security and Medicare. We're running out of money. You can see the Social Security and Medicare are underfunded right now. They're taking in less money than they're paying out.
Right.
That means the federal government's got to borrow the money. So as the 76 million baby boomers that retire now, and we're in that age group, right?
Where does on the chart, what year does it cross?
It looks like it started happening around 2016.
Okay, so right about now, we're almost breaking even, but by 2040, that is going to be so far beyond the ability to pay.
Well, if anybody thinks that the current system is going to survive till 2040,
Right.
they're living in an alternative universe,
Right.
because this cannot go on. Can the camera come to me now? We can take that chart down. People have seen it. Financially, this country is screwed. And it's not just the federal government. The federal government's got, what, $20 trillion in federal debt. We all know that, right?
Right.
At
But
least.
see, the number that's important is the legacy costs. The legacy costs for Social Security, Medicare, military retirements, civil service retirements, Medicaid,
Right.
for people that can't afford insurance for health care. Those systems are underfunded by over $100 trillion a year.
Right.
20 trillion in real debt, but 100 probably more than $100 trillion in unfunded liability. Where's the money going to come from? What's going to happen? These people that are government employees on our aldermanic board, like Bill Berry, I'm told he's a very nice guy. Where's his pension going to come from?
Right.
But you know what? We don't need a nice guy as mayor of the city. We don't want nice people as aldermen for the city. We want accountants.
I was running in Goffstown in 2004, and I was going around doing door to door, and there was a guy. He's passed away, so I'm not going to use his name. But anyway, I went to somebody's door and I says, I'm running for to be your state rep. And they says, yeah. I says, well, I voted for, I'm pro Second Amendment, et cetera, et cetera. And she goes, well, I always vote for candidate X. I says, do you have any idea how they vote?
They don't know. They don't
have
know.
no. And I showed her. He was voting basically Democrat. Mm-hmm. Anti-Second Amendment, pro-income tax. I mean, the whole 9 yards. This guy was totally on board. And she just looked at me and said, oh, he's a nice guy. He wouldn't do that.
Nice guys. Finished first in Manchester.
But I'm conveying that because you're right. You have to start voting for people based on what they are going to do, not because they seem nice to you. Nice isn't... I have a sister who's very nice. I would not vote for her for dog catcher. Mm-hmm. I would be afraid that she got in government.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of people that liked Trump's aggressive stance. He's going to drain the swamp. He's going to put Hillary in jail. He's going to clean everything up.
Yep.
People responded to that.
Oh, yeah.
Frankly, I responded to that, even though I remember Trump and I got into a fight in college. I'm thinking, well, maybe the guy's changed a little bit. But now, you know what? Didn't appoint that special prosecutor. Hillary Clinton's still walking around, and now she's starting a new money laundering operation where she's going to collect money to mount the resistance to Donald Trump.
Right.
You saw that, right?
We have a call. Oh, yeah, we have a call. Yes, caller, you're on the air. What can I help you with today?
1 second, I'll put you up.
Oh.
Okay.
I guess they picked up in there. Hold on. It's Ted.
Okay.
Hi, Ted. You there?
Yes, sir, I'm here. I called before about 15 minutes ago. I got one more question. Maybe you guys can answer it. This state keeps crying poverty. I'm a citizen of this state all my life. I was born and raised here. And the thing is, it keeps crying poverty, but why does it keep monopolizing, like taking care of the tolls, it takes care of the lotteries, bed and breakfast like the guy was talking about, the winter scene, the summer scene, all that money's being taken in, but the state keeps crying poverty, and I'm tired of it. I've got potholes in Manchester they don't even fix, and we end up saying that the state doesn't have any money, and where we're going to fall back on and all this. Something's wrong here. When this state is being monopolized or taken over, in fact, like the liquor stores, they own all this. All these things that this state dominates and takes over, and then they keep crying they don't have enough money to function. Something's wrong here. Maybe you guys can answer that for me.
Sure. Thank you, Ted. Well, we've got an increased budget because our governor thinks that we are going to be having an increased revenue. And
no, we have a proposed.
We have a proposed increased revenue. So the governor thought.
I haven't voted against it yet. So.
And I certainly.
Well, I think
I like our governor. I
think we've got to learn to do more with less.
Well, when we get more revenue, when we get anticipated revenue coming in, the first thing most politicians do, especially the ones in office that can facilitate this, are to start spending more money.
Well, it's worse than that. I mean, Congress,
right.
Look at the U.S. Congress. What do they do? Our deficit last year was $500 billion, over $500 billion. Right. They don't want to just spend all the money. They want to spend money we don't even have.
Right.
And so they're putting these borrowings, they're putting the next generation on the hook for all of that $500 billion.
Yeah, they borrow money against their Social Security, against their birth certificates before they're even issued.
Yeah. So you remember that.
So they can print money.
That advertisement, I maybe it was a Republican Party advertisement. They hand a little kid who's just gotten born a bill for $57,000.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah, and that's what it
Because
is.
they've leaned that account generations before from politicians.
And this
years
is
ahead.
both parties.
But to answer his question
questions.
specifically, if you've got somebody that's running the airport and you're paying them almost $250,000, that's why if they
I think they're paying more than that, aren't they?
it's at 238.
But then
So I
there's
said-
Oh, yeah.
total benefits. I don't know if that's part of the
Right,
group.
whatever.
No, it's not
But-
part of it. That's
it.
extra.
That's
But
extra.
anyway, so
right.
if you're paying somebody $250,000 to run the airport, and you're paying all these other people 100,000, whatever it is,
150,000, 140,000. Firemen, 2 days a week. They sleep at the station. 12 fire stations in Manchester.
Right.
We had 7 big fires last year.
right? But what I'm getting at is if you're paying all these people, how can you possibly afford to fix the potholes?
You see that exactly. You've made my point.
It's
the
top
things
heavy.
that the city's supposed to do, they don't do. The aldermen, their job is to get more and more money for these highly paid government workers.
So they
That's
get
it.
reelected.
Yeah, because there's an unholy alliance
Right.
between the municipal unions and the aldermanic board, and that is permitted because people don't vote.
Right.
And nobody knows and nobody cares.
Okay, so and that answers his question. But now, after that, the next chart was
Just put it up there.
Ted,
next chart.
for Ted, the last caller, the state does not control potholes
Yeah, that's-
repairs.
that's-
That
The
is-
city does,
That,
the
that,
city
that is
government.
the
Yeah,
city. That's the city government.
Exactly.
Correct.
That's why
You can go ahead and put up the next chart, whatever
Please.
it is. Okay, this is the budget. It's a little bit hard to read from where you are, but I can
see
read it. And it shows the costs for 2017, and you will see that there are 5 big numbers.
Talk in the mic, Jeff, so they can hear you at home, bud.
Talking to the mic, is that what you said?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. You can see that the pensions, and which would include Social Security, government pensions, military pensions, and health care, are over $2 trillion of the budget. And that number is going to do nothing but grow over the next few years as the 76 million baby boomers become fully retired. And that number is going to get a lot higher. We've already got 50 or 60 million on people on Social Security now. Imagine what it's going to be like in 10 years
Right.
when all the baby boomers are fully retired. But if you look, the item that's growing the fastest is going to be the interest on the national debt. In 2017, it's about 300 billion, but it's going, according to this chart, the projections, it's going to double. It's going to double.
Right. Okay. So I don't want to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
What are you going to do for Manchester? This is federal. That federal government is. They are a swamp, and they are in deep trouble.
Yeah.
We are all in deep trouble. What are you going to do as mayor of Manchester?
Well, I have a secret plan.
Okay.
Well, how can you tell us if it's secret?
Well, we won't tell anybody.
Yeah, well, see, that's it. I can't reveal the secret plan because then it won't be a secret. And I really need the element of surprise in this, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what to do. That airport guy, I'm sure he's a very smart guy. I went to an Ivy League school just like Donald Trump. Some people think I'm a pretty smart fellow, too. I'll do that job for $80,000, and if I don't do it, I bet I can recruit somebody to do that job, maybe his deputy. I would love to have that job.
All right.
And how about the firemen? You think there's going to be any shortage of people that want to work 2 days a week, making, say, $75,000 a year?
I was a tool maker, a mold maker, which
A highly skilled blue-collar job.
okay. I needed at least 10 years of experience just to get the job I had.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
you screwed up. You should have given some of your salary to Dan O'Neill and gotten a job with the fire department.
Right. So the most I ever made was with a bunch of overtime was $60,000 a year.
Welfare department, the head of the welfare department in Manchester makes
$115,000 a year. Is
What's
that
the name there?
uh,
Is that Martineau?
Paul Martineau.
Well,
But
actually, he
isn't-
was elected, and he is the highest.
But he
the highest paid elected official?
Yeah,
But
even
isn't-
higher than Gatsby's.
But isn't there and 35,000? And nothing. I'm not trying to
take anything away from him. I'm just saying, isn't that a kick in the teeth to everybody that is receiving welfare that really needs help to have your the guy on top of this department getting
Making
paid
most of the money.
$160,000
You think these numbers
Well,
are a
that's
little obscene? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's actually-
these are overpaid, underworked
I
people?
Yes,
think-
but it's no, John. You don't understand. I don't think you know. It's even worse than that because he's getting paid to try to reduce the quantity of welfare he hands out. All his job isn't to try to help people who might be in need at a certain time.
Let me give you a number.
It's
Nationally, we have about 45 million people on food stamps now.
Right.
It used to be 49 million people. Before Obama took over, and I'm not saying this is Obama's fault directly, because the Great Recession came, a lot of people lost their jobs, but before Obama took over, there were a little over 20 million people on food stamps. So that budget exploded and doubled. And you know, we've had a few discussions before we came on the program, and Democrats are really the party of welfare, and Republicans are the party of warfare. Although plenty of Democrats voted for the wars.
So it's still welfare. It's just a different recipient.
That's right. But I'd like to know who is going to attack the United States. I mean, we did have that 9/11 thing, but I mean, really, who in there? What country is going to attack the United States? We don't need $600 or $700 billion of a defense budget. It's too much. We're just feeding the military-industrial complex. This country hasn't won a war since 1945. We have fought many wars. They're not like Israel, where the wars last 6 days. They last 6 years, and then we lose. This is what's happened in Iraq. It's what's happened in Afghanistan. Vietnam went on for 10 years. It's just one thing after another. The Middle East is a cauldron. Trump promised to stay the hell out of there, and now we're going back in.
Yeah,
Not
but
too much yet.
Yeah, but you can't fulfill the heroin, the need for heroin if you shut down Afghanistan.
Well, that's it. That's the other problem. You start cutting back on budgets, and you create recessions in a country because the government is over 20% of the GDP.
Right.
Now we got 10
The
minutes.
largest employer.
We're down to 10 minutes. Is there any other chart that you want to bring up, or you want to start talking?
Well, let's bring up another chart. Just
Let's see.
another one. Let's just take a look.
I lost mine.
Okay, now this is a very important chart. This is a chart that describes total debt in the United States. This is municipal bond debt, corporate debt.
The sharp increase in the beginning, is that during World War II?
No, that sharp increase is the run-up to 1930s. That's the Great Depression.
Oh.
And then the great deleveraging that went on after that as companies and cities and farmers and banks all went down. And so that debt decreased, and then you have the debt increasing starting, as you told me before, about 40 years ago.
Social.
And the increase, yes, the Great Society program, remember that?
The war on poverty.
War on poverty. Let's shovel money at a program. Let's destroy people's work ethic so that they never have to work
Let's
again.
try to create as many people as many dependents as we possibly can.
Do you know how many people are on means-tested welfare in this city? It's a third of the city.
Third?
There are 109 million people in America on some form of means-tested welfare.
Right.
That's a very discouraging number.
Right.
And let's go back to that chart for just a second. You can see now in around 1930, that debt was at around 270% of GDP. Now this chart is about 5 or 6 years old. It is now over 400% of GDP. When this thing crashes, it's going to be worse than the Great Depression. There's too much debt out there. We are at peak debt. They're leveraging everything. Leverage and debt was what caused the banking crisis and the financial crisis in 2008.
Right.
And the banks, everything's so interconnected. If one bank went down, it took down 4 other banks.
Right.
And the whole real estate thing, and everything is leveraged now, including the stock market. I mean, these zero interest rates for the last 10 years, Fed funds rate at near zero, this has distorted the price of everything bought with borrowed money, including real estate. For example, corporate America bought back $7 trillion worth of stock with borrowed money.
Right.
And they can borrow money at very low rates. You and I, we borrow maybe 3 or 4%. Right. They can borrow money at 0.4%, buy back stock,
Right.
and take it off the market, and it drives the stock market higher into a bubble. The Fed has actually created another bubble. And they did it in 2000, from 2000 and 2001 through about 2005 with low interest rates. They did it. Then when rates started going up again, the market crashed, the real estate market crashed, everything crashed, and the banks crashed. This is exactly what happened in the Great Depression.
And then they got bailed out.
Well, yes,
AIG
the banks got bailed out. I mean, the guys running the banks got fired.
Right. But nobody went to jail. They just got fired.
That's right. Nobody went to jail, and there were a lot of financial crimes.
Right. I remember had a dinner. We had a luncheon with Senator Gregg in Manchester at Divine Millimet. There was 50 of us or so in there, and he said that nobody could have seen that collapse coming in 2000.
That's not true. Every real estate
I'm a
agent
mechanic. I was talking to my customers, and they're going, "Wow, you can walk in without a job and borrow 125% of the equity in your house."
Yeah, it was
With
corrupt.
just a signature and no job.
It was corrupt. Government is corrupt.
Right.
Almost by its very
Of course it
nature.
is.
And
The
it's
whole-
all about the money.
Right.
Government's about who they're going to get the money from
Right.
and who they're going to give it to.
Right.
And our aldermen want to give the money to that guy that's making $237,000 at the airport, and a bunch of firemen, a bunch of cops. Even the personnel director is making like $120,000 a year. And I'm sure we can get Dan O'Neill to take this job since he's already the personnel director for the fire department, probably other departments as well. We can get him to take that job. He'll do it for less.
There's something about making $3,000 a week as a city employee that is
$3,000 a week.
No, I'm
so
just-
what's that? $150,000 a
Yeah,
year.
I'm just but give or take. There's plenty on the list.
plus
of it.
plus the
Well,
plus,
and
plus
plus,
that
I
other
mean,
column, the
Yeah, plus
benefit
including
costs.
the benefit. There's something terribly wrong, and I just
wouldn't be
I don't
bad.
know what it is. It's just a natural feeling that I have.
Do you know what
is
happens when I
somebody
show
getting
that?
paid
I go door to door
$3,000 a
talking to
week.
people in wards.
No matter who they are,
And I
if,
and I
if
and
they're
I,
getting
I,
paid with
I say,
taxpayers'
would
money.
you like to buy? Would you like to buy one of these hats? Well, they don't want to buy it.
Right.
I said, but I'll tell you what. I'll throw a couple of pages of my salary list in with the hat, and I make 50% of the sales after that. When they see these salaries, they get mad. They get really upset because the average person in Manchester doesn't make that kind of money. They're making, if they're lucky, they're making $50,000 a year. People at Walmart are making $24,000 a year. Most of them aren't even full time.
Right.
It's a problem.
Dunkin' Donuts, 15,000 a year,
Well, you know,
maybe 20.
20, 25,
hey,
40.
I'm retired. If I want to go back to work and make a little money, I'm looking at Dunkin' Donuts
Right.
if they'll hire me, which they
Right.
probably won't.
Well, why can't you come up with a compromise where instead of the guys lifting weights when they have free time, they go frickin' fill potholes?
They have 90% of their time is free
Not a good
time.
idea?
They could hurt their back doing it.
Oh, a lot of them are on disability because, those weights are kind of heavy that they're lifting back there. So
Yeah,
they hurt themselves. There's a tremendous amount of overtime in the fire department because people are being disabled lifting those weights.
No.
We don't-
That's,
Oh, you can get hurt in a weight room.
I'm sure, but I
I have a property up in.
we got
I have
2
a
minutes.
property in central Maine.
No, we got
There
like
was
a
a
minute.
fire. Everybody showed up to put the fire out. Firefighters, guys directing traffic. I said, "Hey," do you get like a 3-hour minimum or something, 4-hour minimum whenever there's a call, no matter the fire?" And he said to me, "It's a complete volunteer fire department. They don't have any fires. They don't have their newest truck is 1985. They all work together. It's a complete volunteer fire force, and everybody belongs to the fire department, pretty much."
$20 million a year for the fire department in Manchester. I am still available for a firefighter job.
Hey.
Jeff Kassel, www.taxcap.org. I'm running for mayor, and give me 10 new aldermen.
Hey, thank you very much, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
John.
Good being on the
Gary,
See
it's
you next
always
week.
a pleasure.
It is?
Yes,
Huh.
somewhat,
Somewhat. Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you, guys.
in a limited sort of way.
Here's a refrigerator mag.